Hey, small business people and lovers of good stories in general. Welcome to another episode of Small Business War Stories. Today is episode number 10. And today was a special episode for me. I had a good friend of mine, Brian Hassan, on the show. And he is very funny. And we give each other a lot of crap because we've been friends for a long time. But he has a lot of good insights about what it's like to run a successful fitness business. And in the fitness arena, there are generally a lot of people that have passion for starting businesses in that area. But Brian kind of walks through how to think about the economics and the design of the business so that it works well financially as well. And this episode is brought to you again by Proven. Proven.com is the best small business hiring tool in the land. And I helped co-found it, so I'm biased. But check it out. There's a free trial. You can organize everybody, distribute your job to over 100 job boards. Thousands of businesses nationwide use us to hire. And keep an eye out during the month of May. We're going to start airing the episodes from the Soul of America tour, where I go around the country with my puppy, Muddy Waggers. Without further ado, welcome to Small Business War Stories, episode 010 with Brian Hassan of Flagship Athletic Performance. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. And we are live here, Small Business War Stories, episode 010, otherwise known as episode 10. And the reason I can't, it's very hard for me to stay serious, is I'm here with my very good friend, Brian Hassan. And he's just a jolly, funny fellow, and it's really hard to keep your a straight face. But welcome to the show, Brian, and welcome to Austin.
Pablo, when you asked me to be on your show, it was tough. I had Howard coming to me asking me for an interview, but because of our friendship, I said
you just did it.
Ooh, I'm excited.
I don't blame you for being excited. So in celebration of our excitement, we'll crack a shiner here. So here you go. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Awesome. So Brian's a very successful small business person, and amongst one of his ventures is Flagship Athletic Performance, which is a gym focused on strength training, if that's correct, and mobility in San Francisco. Actually, I'll let you define it, but it's in San Francisco. How would you define
I don't know, Pablo, for a second there, I thought you were going to interview yourself, but I don't even know why you even needed me. But okay, thank you for handing the mic over to me.
Absolutely, buddy.
Cool. So Flagship is actually a strength conditioning gym, follows sort of the CrossFit methodology, but is a training regimen primarily for people that are looking to lose weight, get in shape, or help them actually excel in the current sport, whether it's running a 5K, running marathons, swimming, triathlons.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu.
We'll talk about jiu-jitsu in a little bit.
You've been in there, racking up the 700 or so pounds that you squat before you roll on the mat. So yeah, it's just a strength and conditioning gym. A lot of fun though.
Great, that's great. So let me ask you, you were already running another successful business when you started Flagship. What inspired you to, on top of your other successful business endeavors, get into the fitness business?
Yeah, so I've always, loved being in the gym. But many of you guys who actually know me personally know that's it's a passion.
Brian also looks like a comic book character, so that it's probably part of why he likes to spend so much time there.
Pablo, you're getting me excited over here, buddy. I'm glad we're standing across the table from each other. I was actually got into CrossFit back in, I think, 2013. And was fortunate enough to be part of the regionals team representing San Francisco CrossFit, and met some really great guys.
Uh-huh.
And when we met, we realized that there wasn't a place that we could train close to work, which is in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of got together and said, well, let's see if we can open up a gym together. And what started as an idea over some Sunday afternoon drinks turned into an actual reality when we found the perfect location. at the perfect price point, and it just sort of all came together.
Yeah.
I think the goal of Flagship and how we really wanted to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Is that we didn't want a gym that was focused in on lifting 800 pounds or really just being like that muscly meathead walking around. And for us, it was more of a focus in on form, functionality, health, safety, fitness, and what have you. And so that was sort of the mantra in actual Flagship is, hey, let's deliver a really like high-end experience to its members with a core focusing on moving correctly.
Sure. And so you mentioned location, that you found the perfect location. What does it mean, or what did it mean for you to find the perfect location? So what was that process like? Because I remember back then you having challenges with like you almost secured a space and then it didn't work, and a few times. So how, for anybody in our audience that's considering this kind of business, what is the process of securing a location, and what do you think about when you secure a location?
Well, I think it's a pretty extensive process, but if we were to kind of boil it down and keep it pretty simple. You obviously want to take a look at what competitors are in your market, right?
Okay.
And so let's take a look at the zip code, for lack of better words or descriptors, of where we'd like to put the gym, and let's see where our competitors are and how close they are. And then secondly, let's look at the demographic and the daytime traffic. And so for us, in the financial district, there was a significant hole
in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, there was a hole. And that there were no competitors serving a specific area, which was like the older financial district north of market, I would say. Number one. And then number two, we knew what the average earnings were of people that were daytime traffic in that particular area. And we said, well, this could perhaps work because we found a location with very little, if no competition in the, I would say, CrossFit sort of training space. And also the fact that the members would be able to pony up the membership price point that we're asking for to substantiate all of our overhead and expenses.
Rent, because the rent's expensive there.
That's the biggest component.
So that's interesting, because I don't know exact statistics for fitness business, but I know that a lot of fitness businesses struggle sometimes to make the financial side of things work. When you were thinking about this, you were obviously thinking about all the numbers and cents ahead of time. What would be your main piece of advice to people starting a business when you start thinking about the business of it, versus, because it is something that people get very passionate about personally, but the dollars and cents have to make sense.
Yeah, I think before you start any business, right, a lot of people, they've got a lot of passion and they just say, what the fuck, I'm just going to go for it. But they actually don't really put together a plan. And when I mean a plan, I'm not talking about putting together a 70-page business plan, because as you and I both know, particularly in the Bay Area, we know that businesses pivot so many times.
Sure thing.
So when we looked at Flagship, we looked at just a general business model, right? But we actually had to look at it financially, right? Because if we're going to go ahead and fund this, we need to make sure we know, let's be realistic on what's our overhead going to be. And the largest component obviously is rent.
Yeah.
Number two, where are we going to source the coaches? And if we want high quality coaches, what are we going to have to pay them to be competitive in the market?
Right.
And all other associated both fixed and variable costs, but also what do we feel we can grow our membership to? What number? Let's be conservative about it in the first, say, 90 days. And let's put that pen to paper. And again, being ultra conservative, let's over exaggerate what our expenses are, and let's underestimate what we think
So you have a margin of safety if things don't go exactly the way you want them to.
I mean, you have to, especially when you're signing up for a 5-year lease in one of the most expensive cities to rent commercial property is. You got to have the numbers, and you need to be conservative. So absolutely.
So that's probably something that's good advice for anybody starting any sort of business, right? And like you said, there's this like, in order to start a business, you have to be a little bit irrational in the first place, and have this burning desire to do it, but also having all the financial preparation and numbers ahead of time can make a big difference.
I mean, I'd say like there's two types. There's people out there that start a business because they see the dollars, right? Yeah. And there's people, but they don't have the passion, right? And they'll do okay. And you have people that start a business that have the passion, but they don't have the financial wherewithal. Yeah, they'll do okay. But if you start a business, you have both the passion and the financial wherewithal and the actual planning, both financial and strategic, you're more prone to be successful. And that translates not just in like the gym business, but business overall, right? Yeah. I mean, let's look at like Proven as an example of many of the endeavors that you've done, right? Yeah. It's a business that you're clearly passionate about, but you're always planning both financially, strategically, partnerships. And so when you look at a business of, say, quote, starting a gym, a lot of it translates into starting anything is always have a plan, but don't overthink it, right?
Got it. But maybe specifically to the gym business, what is something that most people maybe don't know or don't think about the fitness business that you see very clearly being on the inside?
Yeah, I would say that in the fitness business, it's very difficult to find quality talent, right?
You mean coaches?
In coaches, absolutely, because if you think about it, like the coach is the is representative of your brand, right?
Sure.
When people go to a workout, right, whether it be gym A, B, or C in different workout regimens.
Yep.
Oftentimes I don't hear them talk about, oh, this new thing was amazing. They talk about the coaching, the experience that they had, and right. And so for us, the most difficult part is securing the best coach. And when we look at coaches, obviously there's a laundry list of things that we look for in a coach, but typically like the top two are like knowledge base, and safety. So movement, that's like very, very important, but that alone doesn't get you the job. You also have to have passion, and you have to have the ability to connect with athletes, but also having the ability to facilitate athletes connecting with one another to build that sense of community. So I would say the hardest part of certainly building out a gym or in the fitness space is you got to find the best, what I would call like your brand ambassadors, right?
So what are the specific things that you've done to build community in terms of making people feel like they're a part of something?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have it's community can be built both like during the workout, because think about it, when you're actually going through a challenging routine together, you bond over that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, take a look at, I hate to use this example, but I'm going to, is when you look at like the military as an example. When you go through training together, you create a bond because you're both struggling to achieve perhaps a similar goal. But I would also say what's important is having stuff outside of the gym. So what we do is we often do a lot of different member events. Whether we do, once a month we do to celebrate Pride, we do a Pride WOD. And that's a workout of the day at our Upper Market location. We do in the summer, we do barbecues once a month. We do member appreciation events. And I think it's important to get members into the gym to kind of hang out with one another outside of just the actual like fitness regimen.
Did you have any trouble getting buy-in from members to show up to these, or was it something that organically people responded well to?
I would say at first, obviously, like, you have the diehard people, right? That like just buy into your brand and like love it. And it's like absolutely where it's like their life, but they show up, and then ultimately as the events become more prevalent, you see other additional members coming because they're talking about how fun or how great the event was. And that's something that when you're running a business, it's loyalty, right? How do you create loyalty? You create memorable experiences and bonding between both staff and other customers, right? And the other customers are being the athletes of the gym, right? To where they can speak about, hey, what do you love? What do you not like? But it's also important for like management and ownership to actually listen to not as much as what they love, but what can be improved. Because what I find, and it's funny, it translates into so many different parts of business, it's that so many people focus on improving what's already great, and they don't focus on improving what they really what lacks.
Okay, so give me a specific example of something that you improved that was lacking, maybe.
I would say, like from like an equipment standpoint, right? Like when we first opened the gym, we had some like really amazing, just standard like CrossFit based like equipment, right? But when we actually started looking at the membership and their needs as developing athletes, it made us kind of take a step back and say, hey, let's put a little bit more focus in on less on performance-based CrossFit workouts, and let's start putting more focus on buying equipment for athletes that perhaps would rather do conditioning-focused workouts. We then actually started launching.
What's the difference? I actually don't.
Yeah, so at our facility, we kind of break it up. We have competition training, which is obviously for people that are competing in the sport. That's a very, very, very tiny percentage of our members. Then we have our performance classes, which are like typical barbell, kettlebell, a little bit heavier metabolic conditioning workouts. And then we have conditioning, and where conditioning is something we started it's sort of like as an experiment, but then started expanding upon it due to its popularity, is non-barbell focused workouts that are longer in duration. So
more body weight, like floor exercises.
Yeah, so everything, and I wouldn't just say like you're still using kettlebells, you're still using like jumping on boxes and what have you. But what we found is that whereas you had a large contingency of members that like the performance base, like hey,
meaning I can lift more than I did yesterday.
5x5 back squats, 12 minute like metabolic conditioning workouts. And then we saw a contingency of our members that said, I want 30 to 40 minutes. But I also if I could go anywhere there's a lot of places that offer that.
Yeah.
But what makes us special is let's actually teach you how to move correctly, but let's also focus both before and after the workout on actually mobilizing areas of your body that are perhaps stiff, because you think about the demographic of the athletes that we have as members, a lot of them are sitting at a desk all day.
That's right.
So it's just as important to focus on improving them from a conditioning and strength standpoint as it is to improve their body moving mechanically.
Makes sense. So you talked about learning and adapting. What's something that you did originally that you changed? So what's something that you learned that you realized maybe after 3, 6 months, a year, we're doing this wrong? I guess the programming that you just mentioned is one example, but what's something that seems like an evolution of the programming? What's something that was just plain wrong?
Oh, that's a great question. I can't think of something. I would say, like, I kind of already gave you that answer. Like the biggest one was, I wouldn't say what was wrong, but I would say based on what we've heard from members and what coaches were observing, what we could do better. And that's like offering a more diverse option of program. So I mean, I've pretty much already answered that. So you kind of like,
I took away.
I wish I would have saved that answer for that question, Pablo.
Perfect. Tell me about some of the wackier things you've seen. I mean, it's maybe without naming names. What's some of the weird stuff that's happening?
So one day I had this guy show up named Pablo Fuentes. And it was, you said wacky, you said weird, so I just immediately thought, So no, I would say it's funny.
Brian's also a stand-up comedian. He just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah. I have one fan. It's only Pablo. So I'm working on that.
And I'm here.
Stay tuned for Small Business War Stories 11. That's 01011.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. But no, I'd say wacky. I would say, it's funny, like when you think of like CrossFit too, as a brand, they do like a phenomenal job, and actually like with the training methodology. But sometimes they also have the strangest. Athletes have the strangest fashion.
Oh yeah, tell me more about that.
So when you talk about like sometimes like when you see, and it's not as common anymore, but when you see people showing up in like knee length fluorescent socks with hot dogs and tacos on them,
amazing, and
then like like cut off shirts, and they take their shirts off during the workout and they throw. It's just it's not as prevalent anymore. Actually, in fact, at Flagship, you don't really see it. But when you travel across like the U.S., you see a lot of like really interesting like gym fashion, and also like somebody just ripping off their shirt in the middle of a workout and throwing it on the ground. I think that's pretty comical.
That is kind of cool. So what's the wackiest fashion choice you've seen in the CrossFit community ever? Wow,
wackiest fashion that I've seen. I mean. Shit. There's just so much. Let me come back to you on that one.
All right, I'll come back to you before we wrap it up. Cool. So where do you want the Flagship brand to grow in the next 10 years? When people think, of the name Flagship, where do you want that to go?
Yeah, absolutely. The way that we look at the brand is not necessarily preparing somebody to compete in the sport of CrossFit. Yeah. Granted, like the sport is it's amazing. It creates like movement, mechanical awareness. Like what CrossFit's done, I think for like training is just absolutely amazing. We wouldn't be here today if it weren't for CrossFit, right?
Yeah.
But for us, like our core focus is improving movement and mobility for the everyday person, right?
Yeah.
And helping them achieve their goals, whether their goal is whether it's an athletic related goal, whether to compete in like a jiu-jitsu tournament, whether it's to run a 5K or a marathon, or whether it's a personal goal of being able to like jump up on a box or get off of a bus, without hurting their knees. Like the whole goal of like our brand is to just help people move better. And so I feel that, we have 2 locations now. We're looking to expand, obviously, and kind of share that message, because I think that, a lot of people think of like our training methodology. They feel that, it's where people get injured because they're not taking care of the way that they move. And I think that's
I like the way you say that. How do they get injured again?
There's a little grumble right there. But I think that like if we can keep spreading the message of moving correctly and helping you achieve your goals outside of perhaps like competing in in CrossFit, but perhaps competing in the sport of your choice, or just helping you do anything better every day, helping you feel better. I think that to me that's a great sign of success, and I think that the membership growth is indicative that people don't necessarily go to the gym because they want to compete in in a sport of fitness, but they go to the gym because of the sense of community and walking away knowing that they learned something today that'll help them move better in the future.
Do a lot of people have use this kind of athletic training as a way to supplement something else? So you mentioned jiu-jitsu. I mean, you and I are both practitioners of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and yeah, it was great to see you. You came in with a fitness background, and you came to jiu-jitsu, and you picked up a lot of things really fast and became a fearsome grappler in a pretty quick. He's making a fearsome grappler face for our audience to be in the joke. But do a lot of people use this kind of athletic performance training as a way to supplement something else?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of our if you kind of go on some of our earlier Yelp reviews, you'll see that like there was a gentleman that, he ran his fastest. It was either 5K or and this gentleman is in his 50s or 60s. I believe he's in his 60s, and he actually hit a PR, and it's either his 5K or 10K. Simply by training.
PR, personal record.
Personal record, absolutely. And also like in training jiu-jitsu, like it's remarkable on how the training helps translate. Because with anything, I mean, whether it's again triathlon, running, dance, jiu-jitsu, what have you, your body, it's important that your body moves correctly, whether it's lifting up groceries off of the ground, making sure your shoulders are set. I think it all translates well into everyday activities, but also sports. So I can't really think of a better way to train for strength and conditioning than training the methodology that Flagship follows.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. We're here sitting in Austin, Texas, while you're visiting. You've been visiting here in some way or another for what, 20 years now? 15 years?
I would say, about 15 years
15
or so.
Years.
My family
how have you seen it change? So how do you see what Austin is today versus what it was in 15 years as somebody who comes in periodically and sees it, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, so it started going downhill when Pablo Fuentes actually. No, but I would have to say.
Well, that's a very specific truth. Let's talk about your prior 15 years of experience.
Okay. For the record, it's the first time I've seen Pablo since he's moved here, so it's like Austin's completely changed. But I would say like I've seen it change kind of in two ways. One, it's like it's freaking crazy traffic now, like more than it's ever been because of like the tech boom that's happening here in Austin. So you see really the skyline developing and a lot of new technology-based jobs. So it's really awesome to see because you see the city developing really around all the new commerce. I think it's something crazy. Like my brother had mentioned to me that Austin was the #1 best city to live in. I think he said it was U.S. News and World Reports, and also like you look at like what's available here, both from like the development of new housing and business and commerce. Right. So I'd say see a lot of change there, and also like the music and the music scene. It's always been big here, but it's getting much bigger. With South by Southwest and ACL, which has always been there, but it's getting so much more traction now. And so you see like the universe of what is technology, jobs, and new developments in housing, all the way to like Austin becoming really a capital of music.
So you have an interesting perspective because you currently live in a city that has become unaffordable for a lot of people who are in the arts in San Francisco. And a lot of people in Austin are scared that that's going to happen here if you get too much of the technology and development here, where all of a sudden the soul of the city would get lost. How do you think that's something that the city can achieve in kind of keeping that soul while also creating jobs and moving forward?
Well, I think that's a tough question, Pablo, because I think if you start looking at a lot of the events that are being put on, like for example, like South by Southwest, that puts a core focus on interactive, on music. I think that's really saying, hey, guess what, guys? Let's try to help marry both the technology side of what is Austin with like the art side of what is Austin. So I think the city does a great job in creating events to help kind of facilitate that sort of relationship between the two. But I don't think there's an easy recipe. Here's the deal. At the end of the day, like if Austin has great housing, they've got great jobs that pay very well, and at the same time you have the ability to have access to like best in class music and arts. I mean, people are going to move here, and people are going to be here. So there's really no solution to it except hey, get a piece of property while you can, I guess. But San Francisco is just a whole another animal, right? I think the difference between like a San Francisco and an Austin is that in San Francisco, you have 7 miles by 7 miles to build on.
Yeah.
And Austin is a significantly larger piece of land to be building. So I can see it not being as spatially constrained. So it wouldn't have the same serious effects that have affected a lot of people or resulted in a lot of people moving outside of San Francisco.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, hopefully you'll keep visiting here for the next 15 years, and we can have a conversation about how it's changed.
Well, I was told there's a queen bed in the other room, so I know I always have a free place to stay.
This is true. Is there anything else that you want our audience to know about your business? Where can people find you?
So people can find us at flagshipathleticperformance.com or flagshipcrossfit.com. We're located in San Francisco. We have 2 locations. We have a location in the Castro Noe Valley area, DuBose Triangle. We call it Upper Market at 160 Church Street. We have another location downtown at 250 Montgomery Street. And hopefully more to come. So
wow, is there anything you can announce here about further plans?
Oh, we're always looking. Always looking.
All right.
Always looking to open up new places, spread the word of good movement.
Would you ever spread beyond the San Francisco Bay Area? Is that something that you want to take broader, or is that something that you want to keep more local? Because you have 2 locations today. Is it something? Could you see 10 locations and like all over the West Coast? Or
I think if we keep it's all dependent. We go back to like one of the first questions you asked me, which is about building a successful business and having a model.
Yeah.
Is you don't want to overbuild.
Yeah.
And start in building in markets that you're not familiar with.
Makes sense.
I think that'd be a mistake.
Okay.
So I think that clearly we're definitely open to other markets, but I think it's important to get to know the market first.
Yeah.
And expand and build in the markets that you know where you think there's a need, and then from there, at that point, when you're a little bit more, you're a healthier company financially, then you can start kind of exploring other markets. But again, taking sort of like the data points that had made us successful in the locations that we had, for example, like daytime traffic, demographics, competition, and what have you.
Yeah.
And if those sort of match up to what Flagship's offering in its existing markets, then hell yeah, of course.
Sounds great. Well, I am very, very thankful to have you here as a guest on 010, the 10th Small Business War Stories. And here, we'll toast one more time with our shiners. And I really appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Thanks, Pablo. Appreciate it.
Right.
Awesome time.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.